You see, when someone hurts you, your natural instinct is to react. It's human. We want to defend ourselves, to prove a point, to make them understand the pain they caused. Here's the truth. The moment you react, you hand over your emotional power. You give them control over how you feel, how you think, and how you move. The real strength begins when you learn not to react, but to redirect. Because reaction is impulse, but redirection is mastery. When he hurts you, whether it's through words, betrayal, neglect, or manipulation, the reaction he expects is emotion. He's waiting for the outburst, the tears, the confrontation, the "how could you" moment. That's his script. But the most powerful thing you can do is rewrite the script entirely. You take a deep breath, you pause, and instead of exploding outward, you go inward. You ask yourself, what lesson is this moment trying to teach me? That's how you confuse him. That's how you take back control. Because nothing throws off someone who feeds off your reactions more than your calm. Redirection doesn't mean you suppress your feelings. It means you transform them. You take the fire that was meant to burn you and use it to light your path. You turn pain into focus, rejection into self-reflection, heartbreak into elevation. You start pouring that same energy you were about to waste on him into yourself, your growth, your peace, your next level. Because when you redirect energy, you're saying, I refuse to be defined by what you did. I'm defined by how I rise from it. Think about it. Every time you react emotionally to someone's cruelty, get stronger and you get smaller. But when you choose redirection, you flip that dynamic, you stop being predictable. He expects you to chase, to argue, to explain, to beg for clarity. Instead, back, you let silence do the talking. You let your calmness create confusion, because confusion breaks patterns. It makes people question their control. And that's the first step to freedom, breaking the emotional loop that keeps you stuck in pain. You might be thinking, but Tony, it hurts. I can't just not react. I get that. You're not made of steel. You're made of emotion, and that's a beautiful thing. But emotional intelligence doesn't mean being emotionless. It means being emotionally disciplined. It's about choosing when, where, and how to express your energy. It's about saying, my peace matters more than my point. You can still feel the hurt. You can still cry, still process. But you do it for your healing, not for his validation. The moment you stop reacting is the moment you start leading. Because life is always testing you, not to break you, but to show you who you are. When you can stay grounded in your truth, even when someone tries to shake it, you become untouchable. That's what confuses him. It's not your anger, not your silence, it's your steadiness. Realization that he no longer controls the emotional weather inside you. He can storm all he wants, but you've learned to be the sky, vast, unmoved, still there when it's all over. And here's the beauty in all of this: when you stop reacting, you begin to attract differently, because you're operating from strength, not from survival. You're no longer driven by the need to prove your worth to anyone who fails to see it. You're driven by the certainty that your worth was never up for debate. That's when you confuse him, and not because you're playing games, but because you're no longer playing at all. So the next time he hurts you, don't react. Redirect. Redirect your thoughts toward peace. Redirect your focus toward healing. Redirect your energy toward becoming so aligned with your power that no one can shake it again. Because the ultimate confusion you can create is not revenge, not indifference, it's transformation. When he sees that what was meant to break you became the very thing that built you, that's when the game ends. And you win, not because you defeated him, but because you outgrew the need to fight. He expects noise. He expects you to shout, to defend yourself, pour out your emotions in a way that proves you still care. That's the cycle most people never escape. They confuse attention with power. But when you choose silence instead, you flip that entire pattern upside down. Your silence becomes your message. It's not passive. It's not weak. It's a declaration of emotional mastery that says, I don't need to scream to be heard. I don't need to explain my worth to be understood. When someone hurts you and you go quiet, it confuses them. They start replaying everything they did, every word they said, trying to figure out what's going on, because they expected a reaction, some form of emotional confirmation that they still have control over your peace. But silence removes that control. It leaves them in uncertainty, and uncertainty is power, because people can predict anger, they can argue with words, but they can't fight calm. Calm is unsettling to someone who thrives on chaos. This doesn't mean you suppress your emotions. It means you take your power inward, where it belongs. You don't waste your energy trying to make them see what they're not ready to understand. You stop performing for their validation. You stop bleeding your truth just to prove you were loyal, loving, or right. Because if someone genuinely cared about your pain, you wouldn't have to raise your voice for them to hear it. Silence in this sense is not the absence of communication, it's the presence of boundaries. And the moment you embody that, everything shifts. You start realizing that not everyone deserves a response. Some actions, some words, some betrayals, they don't deserve your energy anymore. You can't keep watering relationships that thrive on your reactions. You can't keep explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. Silence becomes your filter, separates those who value you from those who only valued access to you. Now, this kind of silence isn't cold. It's not vengeful. It's sacred. It's a healing space you create for yourself where your spirit can breathe again. You learn that peace is not a prize someone gives you after they stop hurting you. It's something you reclaim by stepping out of the emotional battlefield. Silence gives you the clarity to see things for what they are, not for what you hope they would be. It helps you detach from the noise and listen to your own truth again. The person who hurt you might interpret your silence as indifference, and that's okay. Let them. They'll try to provoke you again. A text, a call, a rumor, anything to get a reaction. Don't give it. Don't let them pull you back into the same emotional arena. Every time you refuse to respond, you're reinforcing your boundary. You're saying, my peace is more important than your attention. That's not revenge, that's evolution. Because here's what confuses him most. He realizes he no longer knows how to reach you. The same buttons he used to press don't work anymore. The emotional chaos that once guaranteed your attention now hits a wall of stillness, and that silence is louder than anything you could ever say. It tells him you've grown, you've healed, and you've outgrown the version of yourself that tolerated less than you deserve. When you learn the art of quiet strength, you no longer chase closure. You create it. You don't seek validation, you embody it. You don't demand respect, you command it through your presence, your energy, your calm. That's what real power looks like. Not noise, not confrontation, but the kind of silence that speaks volumes about who you've become. Because in the end, silence doesn't mean you have nothing to say. It means you finally understand that not everyone is worth talking to. There comes a point where you have to stop explaining yourself to people who have already made up their minds about you. You could pour your heart out, line up every truth, show every angle, and they would still twist it because they were never listening to understand. They were listening to defend their story about you. That's what happens when someone hurts you but refuses to take responsibility. They distort, they deflect, they make you question yourself until you start wondering if you're the problem. But listen, the moment you start explaining yourself to someone who's committed to misunderstanding you, you've already lost your peace. You can't teach accountability to someone who's addicted to blame. You can't reason with someone who uses manipulation as communication. When you realize that, you stop chasing clarity from chaos. Because there are people who don't want to understand you, they just want to keep you confused. Confusion keeps you controlled. It keeps you apologizing for things you didn't do, defending actions that were never wrong, and seeking approval that will never come. That's not love. That's emotional warfare. So what do? You stop playing the game. You stop feeding the illusion that if you explain yourself just one more time, they'll finally get it. They won't. It's not because your words lack truth. It's because their ego can't handle it. Some people would rather believe a lie that protects their pride than face a truth that challenges it. The most powerful thing you can do is withdraw your need to be understood. Let them misunderstand. Let them sit in their version of the story, because the truth doesn't stop being true just because someone can't see it. When you stop explaining, you confuse them. They expect debate. They expect justification. They expect you to plead your case. But you're no longer in that courtroom. You've left the trial behind. You've realized your peace is more valuable than your defense. You're not obligated to prove your intentions to people who betrayed them. You're not responsible for making a liar believe you. And you're certainly not here to convince anyone of your worth. That's not something you argue for. It's something you embody. And the beautiful thing is, when you release that need, you free yourself, you reclaim all the energy you've been wasting trying to convince people who only wanted to misunderstand you. You take that energy and pour it into your healing, your goals, your self-respect. You begin to see that your time, your words, your emotions, they're valuable currency. You don't spend them where there's no return. You don't negotiate your peace for someone's attention. You start living like your clarity is sacred, and only those who operate with the same honesty deserve access to it. You'll notice something interesting when you do this. The ones who used to control you through guilt, shame, or confusion will start to lose their grip. They'll reach out again, maybe pretending to care, maybe trying to bait you into another argument, but you'll feel it, the peace that comes from no longer needing to explain. You'll simply say nothing, or you'll say less, and it'll be enough. That silence, that certainty, will confuse them more than any argument ever could, because they'll sense it. You've outgrown the need for their understanding. You're no longer reacting to manipulation, you're responding to reality. And the reality is this: not everyone is meant to understand your heart, your journey, or your choices. That's okay. People are lessons, not lifelong listeners. You thank them silently for showing you what you'll never tolerate again, and you move forward lighter, freer, stronger, because the truth doesn't require validation. It just requires peace. And peace begins the moment you stop explaining yourself to people who have already decided who you are. Detachment is not about becoming cold or distant. It's about reclaiming your power. It's about saying, I can love you deeply, but I refuse to lose myself in the process. Because too often, when someone hurts us, we keep holding on, thinking if we just care harder, explain longer, or give more, they'll change. But here's the truth: love doesn't heal what someone refuses to face. And staying attached to someone who keeps wounding you isn't loyalty. It's self-abandonment. When you detach, you take back everything you gave away, trying to be understood, trying to be chosen, trying to fix what wasn't yours to fix. You start seeing things clearly. The fog lifts. You realize that no amount of love can make someone respect you if they don't respect themselves first. And that realization, though painful, is freeing, because now you're no longer fighting to hold on. You're learning to let go with grace. That's what confuses him. He expects the old version of you, the one who tolerated the disrespect, who kept forgiving without change, who stayed even when it hurt. But when you detach, that version of you no longer exists. Detachment doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop trying to control the outcome. You stop expecting closure from chaos. You stop needing someone else's behavior to validate your worth. You understand that your peace can't depend on their presence or absence. It's something you build within yourself. That's when your energy changes. You stop chasing and start attracting. You stop begging for attention and start radiating self-respect. You become quiet, centered, and untouchable, not because you don't feel, but because you finally feel yourself again. When you're attached, your emotions are like a roller coaster. Every word, every text, every action dictates how you feel. But when you detach, you step off the ride, you start watching from the ground, calm and steady. You don't chase after mixed signals anymore. You read them for what they are. You don't cling to potential, you honor reality. You don't beg for the bare minimum, you become the standard. That shift is magnetic, and it's confusing because he can no longer manipulate what he can't control. And here's the paradox: when you detach, you actually love better, because real love isn't about possession, it's about presence. It's about showing up as your full, whole self, not a version constantly seeking reassurance. Detachment allows you to love without losing yourself, to give without depletion, to walk away without resentment. It teaches you to hold space for someone's humanity without carrying the weight of their dysfunction. He may not understand that kind of strength. He might think your distance means you've stopped caring, but that's not true. It means you care enough about yourself to stop bleeding for someone who keeps reopening the same wound. It means you've reached a level of emotional maturity where peace is your priority. You've realized that holding on to pain doesn't make you loyal. It makes you stuck. And your healing matters more than his confusion. The real confusion for him begins when he realizes he no longer has access to your emotions. He texts you, take your time. He provokes you, stay calm. He pulls away, and instead of chasing, you lean back. You're not cold, you're centered. You're no longer reacting from need. You're responding from clarity. That's the moment he starts to question everything, because now your energy has shifted from attachment to awareness, and awareness cannot be manipulated. Detachment isn't the end of love, the beginning of self-respect. It's when you stop begging for reciprocity and start walking in your worth. It's when you understand that losing someone who doesn't value you isn't loss, it's alignment. It's the universe making space for the kind of love that won't require you to shrink. And when he finally looks at you and realizes he can't reach you in the same way anymore, that's the confusion you were meant to create, not out of revenge, but out of evolution. When someone hurts you and keeps doing it, they don't learn through your explanations. They learn through your absence. But before you walk away completely, there's a powerful thing you can do: mirror their energy, not out of spite, not to play games, but to make them see themselves clearly for the first time. You simply reflect what they give: their tone, effort, their consistency, and nothing more. If they pull back, you don't chase. If they go silent, you match that silence. If they give you half, you stop giving whole. And then, just when they start to notice the change, you withdraw completely. That's when confusion hits, not because you've manipulated them, because you've broken the pattern that kept them comfortable. See, people who take your love for granted expect you to always be available. They count on your forgiveness, your softness, your habit of trying to fix what they keep breaking. But when you mirror their behavior, you introduce them to their own reflection. Suddenly, they're faced with the reality of how they've been treating you, the lack of effort, the emotional distance, the indifference. It's confronting, it's uncomfortable, and it's exactly what they need to feel. Because as long as you overgive while they underdeliver, they'll never see a reason to change. Here's the thing: mirroring is not about lowering your vibration. It's about showing them energetically that you're done playing uneven games. You're not begging, not competing, not proving. You're simply adjusting your energy to match reality. And that's where the confusion begins, because the very things they thought you'd never stop doing, checking in, forgiving, waiting, explaining, suddenly stop. They'll start wondering what happened. Why isn't she reacting? That's when they realize your love was not weakness, it was choice. And that choice no longer includes tolerating what hurts you. Then comes the withdrawal, the most powerful move of all, because mirroring alone catches attention, but withdrawal creates awakening. When you remove your energy, your warmth, your kindness, your availability, it leaves a void. And that void becomes the lesson. People don't change when they're comfortable. They change when they lose the comfort of your consistency. You see, energy is currency. Every time you invest it in someone who gives you nothing in return, you deplete your self-worth. When you take that energy back, you start building yourself again, stronger, clearer, untouchable. Withdrawal doesn't have to be dramatic. You don't announce it. You don't post quotes about it. You just stop showing up where you're not valued. You stop explaining what's already been explained. You stop waiting for effort that's never coming, and you do it quietly, gracefully, with peace. That silence is the most confusing thing for someone who expected you to fight for them forever, because now the dynamic has flipped. They're the one wondering, they're the one checking, they're the one trying to figure out what changed. What changed is you. You stop begging for clarity from someone who thrives on confusion. You stop chasing closure from someone who was never open. You stop giving your energy to a situation that only drained it. And that shift is magnetic, because when you redirect your energy inward, you rise, you glow differently, you move differently, you speak differently. You're not bitter, you're free. The beauty of this kind of power is that it doesn't come from revenge, it comes from alignment. You didn't play a game, you ended one. You didn't get even, you got elevated. And that's what truly confuses him, realizing that you're no longer seeking to win his attention because you've already won your self-respect. When he looks for the version of you he could manipulate and can't find her anymore, that's the silence that speaks the loudest. That's the moment he understands that access to your energy was the privilege and he lost it. So mirror his energy, let him feel his own reflection. Then withdraw it, not to hurt him, to heal yourself. Because once you reclaim that energy, you'll never chase what's beneath your worth again, and that kind of peace is the most confusing thing anyone who once had power over you will ever experience. When someone hurts you, your instinct is often to raise your voice, to fight, to argue, to be heard. You want them to understand the pain they caused, to finally wake up and see the damage they've done. Here's the truth: you don't rise by shouting louder, you rise by standing taller. You don't confuse him by matching his chaos. You confuse him by raising your standards so high that his behavior no longer even qualifies for your attention. Because when you elevate your standards, you shift the entire playing field and the game ends on your terms. The person who once had power over you expects the same emotional reaction, the tears, the frustration, the long explanations. They expect you to keep arguing because that's how they measure their control. But when you stop fighting for the connection and start fighting for your peace, something changes. You no longer need to convince him to treat you better because you've decided that you deserve better with or without him. That shift in energy, that quiet elevation is what confuses him most. He doesn't understand how someone who once begged for crumbs now demands a feast, and not from ego, but from self-respect. Raising your standards isn't about being harsh or superior. It's about refusing to negotiate your worth. It's about saying, I'm done settling for less than effort, less than honesty, less than love that feels safe. You stop giving chances to someone who keeps proving they don't deserve them. You stop trying to see the potential in people who show you patterns. You start valuing consistency over charm, alignment over chemistry, peace over passion that burns and destroys. You grow so much that the version of you who tolerated pain starts to feel like a stranger. And the beauty of it, you don't even have to announce it. Your energy says it all. You speak differently, walk differently, choose differently. You stop reacting to the same old triggers because you've outgrown the level where those battles exist. He tries to pull you into the same emotional games. The guilt, the blame, the half apologies, and suddenly none of it works because you've evolved. Your peace is the new non-negotiable. That's what truly confuses him. The calm. He can't understand how his old tactics no longer get a rise out of you. You're not angry. You're not bitter. You're just unavailable for that version of love. And when someone realizes they can no longer reach you through the same emotional shortcuts, they have two options, evolve or exit. Either way, you win, because your focus is no longer on changing him. It's on changing what you allow. When you raise your standards, you start attracting people who meet them. Life responds to the energy you set. If you keep accepting less, you keep receiving less. The moment you say, no more, I'm not chasing anyone who makes me feel small, the universe adjusts, new people, new opportunities, new love begin to appear, not because they're magically better, because now you've stopped negotiating your peace for connection. You've learned that solitude with self-respect is more powerful than companionship with confusion. And here's the thing, raising your standards isn't about perfection, it's about alignment. You're not asking for too much, you're just asking the wrong person. You're not difficult, you're discerning, you're not cold, you're clear, because the truth is, the higher your standards, the fewer explanations you owe. You start realizing that energy speaks louder than words, effort means more than excuses, and your boundaries are not walls, they're filters that protect your peace. He won't understand this right away. He'll call it pride, attitude, or distance. Deep down, he'll feel it. The difference between the version of you who tolerated pain and the version of you who honors her power. That's the confusion that changes everything. Because now you no longer compete for someone's love. You stand in your value and let them rise to meet it or fall away trying. So stop raising your voice. Stop begging to be seen. Just raise your standards and let silence, self-respect, and strength do the talking. Because nothing confuses a man who once had your heart more than realizing he can no longer reach your energy. You've evolved beyond his level of access, and that's not arrogance, that's alignment. Pain is the most misunderstood teacher in life. When he hurt you, it wasn't just heartbreak, it was an invitation, a brutal, unasked for invitation to rise. You see, pain only destroys you when you resist it, but when you face it, when you breathe through it, when you let it burn away what no longer serves you, it transforms you. That's the secret. You don't escape pain by avoiding it. You evolve through it. And that's where your true confusion power begins. Because the moment you start turning pain into progress, you stop being a victim of your story and start becoming the author of your next chapter. He never expected that the same pain he caused would become your fuel. He thought breaking your heart would break your spirit. But instead, it cracked you open. And from that crack, light started pouring in. You began to see things differently. The very wound that once made you weak started giving you wisdom. You began realizing that his rejection wasn't the end, it was redirection. Life was never taking something from you, it was preparing you for something greater. That's the moment you stop asking, why did this happen to me? And start declaring, this happened for me. Turning pain into progress means using what hurt you as raw material for your rebirth. It means getting up every day, even when you're tired, and saying, I will not let this pain define me. I will let it refine me. It's in the gym when you push through one more rep, not just for your body, but for your mind. In the quiet nights when you choose to journal instead of text him again, it's in every decision where you choose healing over habit, growth over guilt, faith over fear. That's where transformation happens, not in the comfort, but in the climb, and that climb confuses him because he expected to see you broken, bitter, or stuck. He thought you'd stay in the place where he left you, but instead he sees someone new, someone glowing, focused, grounded. Someone who's not trying to get even, but to get better. And that shift, that unstoppable rise, is the kind of confusion that can't be ignored because pain changes you in two directions. It can imprison you or it can empower you. Pain has a purpose. It reveals what's real. It strips away illusions, weak excuses, fake connections, and shallow desires. It shows you what you truly value, what you truly deserve, and who truly belongs in your life. When you stop running from pain and start learning from it, you gain something no one can take, emotional strength. You begin to realize that your peace is no longer fragile. You don't need anyone's apology to move forward. You don't need closure to create clarity. You've made peace with your past because it built the version of you standing here now, stronger, wiser, untouchable. Confusion for him comes from seeing you grow from what was supposed to destroy you. He remembers the tears, the heartbreak, the chaos. But he doesn't understand the discipline, the focus, the self-love that rose from those ashes. You stopped fighting for his attention and started fighting for your evolution. You built something inside yourself that doesn't crumble when someone leaves. You became your own source of validation, your own provider of peace. And that kind of power can't be manipulated. It's divine. Every wound carries wisdom. Every heartbreak carries a hidden lesson. And every painful ending holds the seed of a new beginning. When you take the energy that once cried over him and use it to build yourself, your future, your peace, you become unstoppable. You confuse him not by pretending you're okay, but by becoming genuinely better, by living, by thriving, by smiling with no bitterness left in your heart, because nothing unsettles a man more than realizing the woman he tried to break turned her pain into purpose. And never look back, so don't hide your pain. Honor it. Let it shape you. Let it sharpen you. Let it turn you into the version of yourself you were always meant to be, because progress is the best revenge, growth is the loudest comeback, and peace, real, grounded, unshakable peace, is the ultimate confusion for anyone who once thought they had power over you. Forgiveness. It's one of the hardest things you'll ever do, not because they deserve it, but because you do. See, forgiveness isn't about saying what they did was okay. It's not about forgetting or pretending the pain never happened. It's about releasing yourself from the emotional grip of what they did, because as long as you hold on to the anger, the resentment, the bitterness, they still have power over you, even in their absence. Forgiveness is not for him. It's for your freedom. When he hurt you, he probably thought the damage was permanent. He assumed you'd stay stuck in the same story, replaying the same moments, carrying the same pain. But when you forgive, not to excuse, but to release, you confuse him. Because he expects you to hate him, to carry that bitterness forever. But you do something he can't comprehend, you rise above it. You don't carry the poison, you drop it. You choose peace, not payback. You choose to heal instead of staying hostage to what broke you. And that's where true power lies. You can't heal while holding on to resentment. Anger might make you feel strong for a moment. It drains you over time. It keeps you tied to a version of yourself that's always reacting to what they did. Forgiveness, on the other hand, disconnects that cord. It says, you no longer get to occupy space in my heart rent-free. You stop letting that wound define your identity. You take the lesson, not the luggage. Forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. It doesn't mean you let him back into your life. It means you're no longer carrying him in your spirit. You stop waking up every day fighting a battle that's already over. You stop needing revenge to validate your pain, because the truth is revenge keeps you connected to the same vibration that hurt you. Forgiveness elevates you beyond it. It's the act of saying, I'm not letting your actions dictate my peace any longer. That's the confusion, because he doesn't understand how you can move on without needing his remorse. He may try to provoke you, remind you of what happened to see if he still has that emotional hold, but your calm will disarm him. When you forgive, you no longer react, not because you've forgotten, but because you've transcended it. You've outgrown the part of you that needed his closure. You've found your own. And that peace is something he can't touch, can't explain, can't understand, because it's not external. It's internal. You've healed the wound he left, and now he's just a lesson, not a hold. There's something magnetic about a person who's truly let go. You can see it in their eyes. Peace where there used to be pain, gratitude where there used to be resentment. Forgiveness changes your energy. It lightens you. You stop dragging the weight of yesterday into the beauty of today. You start making space for new energy, for joy, for love, for clarity. You realize that the real win wasn't proving him wrong. It was proving to yourself that you can rise without revenge. Forgiveness is strength disguised as softness. It takes more courage to release than to retaliate. Anyone can hold a grudge. That's easy. But it takes an evolved heart to say, I release you. Not because you earned it, but because I deserve peace. That's not weakness. That's emotional maturity at its highest level. Because you've learned that clinging to pain doesn't protect you. It just prolongs the suffering. Letting go doesn't mean losing. It means reclaiming your energy and directing it toward what truly matters. And here's the ultimate twist. The more you forgive, the freer you become. The freer you become, the happier you are. The happier you are, the more it confuses him. Because how could the person he once hurt now radiate joy? How could the person he left broken now walk with lightness and purpose? That's the power of forgiveness. You didn't do it for him. You did it for your soul. So forgive, not because it's easy, not because he deserves it, but because peace tastes better than pain. Freedom feels better than fury. The day you forgive is the day you finally break the chain. And that quiet, graceful freedom, that's the kind of confusion that echoes forever. Love, the word that built you, broke you, and taught you everything you needed to know about yourself. When he hurt you, part of that pain came from realizing that what you thought was love wasn't. It was attachment. It was hope dressed as healing, potential disguised as partnership. Here's the truth that changes everything. Love was never supposed to cost you your peace. Love was never supposed to make you question your worth. And when you finally redefine what love means, you start to see that real love isn't something you chase. It's something you become. For too long, you may have confused love with endurance. The idea that if you just stayed, if you just forgave again, if you just gave a little more, maybe he'd see your value. But that's not love. That's self-neglect wrapped in devotion. Love isn't measured by how much pain you can tolerate. It's measured by how safe, seen, and supported you feel. When you start redefining love from that place, you begin to realize that what you called chemistry was often chaos. What you thought was passion was really inconsistency. What you mistook for connection was just comfort with pain. And that realization is powerful, because once you see it, you can't unsee it. You start unlearning the version of love that broke you and replacing it with the kind that builds you. You stop chasing validation and start embodying self-respect. You stop begging for attention and start creating standards. You stop romanticizing potential and start honoring patterns. Shift, that internal revolution, confuses him because he doesn't recognize this new version of you anymore. The one who doesn't respond to his old tricks, who doesn't fall for empty apologies, who no longer equates pain with passion. Redefining love means choosing yourself every single time. It means understanding that the deepest form of love is the one you give to your own soul. You start to see that love isn't about losing yourself in another person. It's about finding someone who helps you stay grounded in who you are. You no longer seek completion, you seek companionship. You don't look for someone to save you, you look for someone to grow with you, because now you've learned that real love isn't chaos. It's calm. It's not confusion. It's clarity, and that shift in energy is what he can't comprehend, because before your love was loud, reactive, emotional, available. Now it's quiet, intentional, selective, strong. You're no longer impressed by promises. You're moved by consistency. You're no longer interested in attention. You're drawn to peace. You no longer crave the butterflies that come from anxiety. You crave the groundedness that comes from security. That's growth, and it's confusing to someone who once thrived on your emotional availability. He'll try to test the boundaries of this new version of you. Maybe a message, maybe a subtle reminder of the past. But now love has a new definition. It's not about nostalgia. It's about alignment. You don't romanticize what broke you. You thank it for the lesson and you move forward, because love, when you redefine it, stops being something you give away carelessly. It becomes sacred, something earned through consistency, honesty, and mutual respect. The most beautiful part of this transformation is that you start to attract differently. When you love yourself fully, you stop inviting people who only love you halfway. You stop entertaining half truths, half effort, half commitments. Because you've learned that love isn't something you fight for. It's something that flows when both people are ready to meet at the same level. You no longer chase, you choose, and you choose peace every time. So redefine love, redefine what it means to you, and never again mistake pain for passion. Let love be something that expands you, not something that empties you. Let it be something that adds to your peace, not something that costs it. Because when you finally understand that love starts within, no one can use it against you again. And that unshakable clarity is the ultimate confusion for anyone who once mistook your love for weakness. Your absence, that's where your power truly begins. See, presence is easy. Anyone can show up, talk, argue, try to prove a point, but it takes mastery, emotional intelligence, and self-worth to know when to walk away, not with anger, not with noise, with silence that speaks louder than any confrontation ever could. When you choose absence over reaction, when you step back instead of chasing, that's when the confusion begins. Because he expected your energy, your attention, your presence, but now he gets your absence, and that, my friend, is your echo, your transformation, your closure. He won't understand it at first. He'll check if you're still watching, still waiting, still hurting. But what he finds is distance, not the cold kind, but the peaceful kind. The kind that says, I've made peace with what I cannot change. Your absence is not revenge, it's revelation. It reveals who truly values you and who only valued your accessibility. It shows him that what he once took for granted was never guaranteed. And that realization, that emptiness where your energy used to be, it rattles him, because your absence forces him to sit with his own noise. When you step away, you reclaim every piece of yourself you gave away. The energy you once used to explain, to justify, to hope, you now invest that into your growth, your peace, your purpose. That's the evolution. You start showing up differently. Your boundaries become sacred. Your energy becomes selective, and your silence becomes golden. You confuse him not by what you say, but by what you no longer give your energy to. He expects the old version of you, emotional, available, forgiving. Instead, he meets the evolved version, focused, grounded, untouchable. Your absence becomes a teacher. It teaches him the value of your presence. It teaches him that real connection can't be replaced by attention from others. It teaches him that silence can be the loudest consequence of all. But more importantly, your absence teaches you. It teaches you that closure doesn't come from someone else. It comes from within. It teaches you that the peace you were chasing in another person was always waiting inside you. It teaches you that when you stop showing up where you're not respected, your life starts expanding in the places where you are. And then transformation, the T in ETC, that's when your absence evolves into your transformation. You start glowing differently. You're not trying to prove you've moved on. You simply have. You've stopped explaining your worth. You embody it. You've stopped needing to be chosen. You choose yourself. Your goals get bigger. Your standards get higher. Your energy gets cleaner. You confuse him because you're no longer fighting for attention. You're focused on elevation. He sees you from afar, doing better, growing, glowing, and he realizes your absence didn't destroy you, defined you. Finally, closure, the C. Real closure doesn't come from words. It comes from peace. It comes when you no longer flinch at his name, no longer replay the story, no longer care what he thinks. Closure comes when your heart stops needing answers and starts appreciating the lesson. You realize it's not about who hurt you, it's about who you became after. It's not about what ended, it's about what began inside you. That's closure, the calm after the storm, the quiet confidence that says, I'm done looking back because everything I need is ahead of me. And that's the ultimate confusion. He expected you to stay smock seeking, but instead you disappeared and became unstoppable. Your absence became your echo, your evolution, your essence. You didn't need to destroy him. You simply outgrew him. You didn't need revenge. You found renewal. You didn't need closure from him. You created it within yourself. And now your silence speaks 1,000 words, not of bitterness, but of peace. So remember this: when he hurts you, don't chase, don't prove, don't plead. Just confuse him with your evolution, your transformation, your calm. Because the moment you stop giving your energy to what broke you and start giving it to what builds you, you stop being the victim and become the victory. That's when he realizes you were never the one who lost anything. You were the lesson he'll never forget.